got a lot of the internet sites that you can't get to anymore that are logs of people that have built them, so we know they're very hands-on sort of a device, kind of difficult to build, but so far it's, and then you model it after you build it, and then you figure out how it violates the laws of electromagnetism, and that leads you to what is the mode of operation, and then you build a small one and a big one, and he was divinely guided. I mean, he didn't know how to, he didn't dream this up himself. He was clearly coached.
I think the fuser is very buildable. The plans are up there. You can go to fusor.net too.
Okay, so the Farnsworth fuser. It's with high temperature like that, and now you really need an electrical engineer, and I can build a cone, no problem there. But I doubt if I could do like a control system for a plasma drive or something.
Harry might be able to help us.
There we go. Let's get Harry involved. Harry Jabs, yeah. Anybody else?
There's a question with center back.
Center back? Oh, is this a good question or is this some lame old question? A great one. Oh, this is good. Okay, no pressure now.
Mixture. I was listening to the Art Bell program one time where they were talking about this alien material that they had, and it had
arts parts.
Arts parts.
Yeah, that's from the Roswell craft, and it's layered bismuth, and yeah.
Yes, and I think
magnesium.
it was, from my vague memory, in a square, small shape. The bismuth.
He had a fragment that, as I understand it, was kind of like, it's clear that the spaceship smashed into something and some parts fell out. So not necessarily cut, in a tidy fashion, sort of ripped out, is what I've heard. But yeah, it was layered in bismuth and magnesium, and very pure bismuth and very pure magnesium. And about 7 layers, and only a few microns thick each layer, so looking at 100 atoms thick. One characteristic of all of these alien spaceships is that they are molecularly perfect. That you're looking at a device that's hundreds of feet to thousands of feet to miles across, and perfect crystals. There's not an atom out of place. Holy smokes, We can do that on a small scale with chips, but as far as doing that on a routine scale and building things, forget it.
Are you speaking about the shell, or just basically?
No, they look grown. Like when you with the Lazar, having been inside of the gray sports ship, he said the whole place was molecularly perfect. That the exterior was single crystal, but so was the floor, and so was the basement, and so was the attic, and the whole thing looked like it was just, there were no seams, there were no rivets, it was all grown. And the same with the power plant that David Adair looked at, that it appeared to have been grown, not assembled.
Okay, so everything is basically, even the gravity drives.
Single crystal.
All part of the.
Yeah, we're far away from being able to do anything like that.
Is that like
But we're doing more nano fab now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's a question over there.
By the way, another great question. What's the other question?
So anybody watch this cartoon called Steins Gate?
Steins Gate?
Okay, well, the question is, do you ponder over this notion of the timeline and shifting to timeline B, and then
right. Timeline jumping. Right.
Jumping, yeah, like that. Is that something that you thought of, or?
So the guy that has a lot of personal experience is Andrew Shago, and if you listen to his interviews, the device that they were using back then looked like a couple of elephant tusks. They had a rotating bismuth crystal above it, and they had a laser shining into it. Okay, so this means the laser traces a plane across these tusks, okay? And then he said the gravity field was in the middle of this thing, and you jump in the middle, okay? Remember, never stick your finger in a time field, okay? You want your whole body to be in the time field, and you don't want part of it dangling out. That's not good for business. One of the mishaps, okay? They were sending kids through, apparently because kids are expendable, these guys are not exactly, Gandhi, ethically speaking. And one of the kids, he accidentally teleported into a fountain that was about 3 inches deep. And when he materialized, his feet materialized slightly later because they were underwater. And he basically lost both of his feet. Okay? Now, one of the headaches with time travel is you can go somewhere in time, but if you don't have a zero time reference generator, getting back is a little dicey. Okay? So you go somewhere in time, okay, having a great time, now you return, and all of a sudden you come back to a timeline where Earth is desolate, and lots of challenges in getting that technology to work, and everybody that has been in that business, they say the math is really ferocious, and it's clearly a technology where you have to be a pretty advanced race to make it work well, but it's low power. So, you know, and we have the Madman Markham device, which is another one of these candidates for. We have complete information, sufficient to reproduce. We just don't have any volunteers to build it and then stick their finger in it. We want to give it the finger on it. Fire away. Yes. Oh, another excellent question. Yes.
Was there the ship that he was traveling in? Was that a transit machine?
Which ship? Who was traveling in?
I think that Bob was there with it.
Bob Lazar. So he didn't really. He never went anywhere.
No.
He worked at Area 51. They had a bunch of spaceships, and he was reverse engineering one of them. In addition to,
he didn't go up. He went down.
well, he was at S4. But in addition to the videos that he talks through what he did, there are interviews that talk about one of the days when he arrived. All the hangar doors were open, and he saw about a dozen different ships that all looked different. You know, one looked like a top hat, and one was a sphere, and you know, all these different weird shapes. And he talked to the guy he was working with, saying, "Gee, where'd those all come from?" And he goes, "Well, they're all different shapes, but they use the same gravity drive." And so that is an indication that they all buy them from General Motors. They all buy them from Detroit. That they're getting them from Aldebaran or, you know, someplace that's in the business of making, you know, spacecraft for you. So they're definitely kissing cousins. But Lazar never actually went anywhere. He engineered it, and the reason he got the job was because the previous guys blew themselves up. So it's now, you know, fraught with hazards. You know, join the Black Ops and get blown up. Oh, it wasn't in the advertisement. Yes, we're saying, Tom.
Yes, some people believe that the visitors have an agenda where they want us to move us along in our development so they can take more advantage of us, and so hence a variety of crafts that have been so-called retrieved.
Yeah, so the my other talk on alien civilizations, I kind of go into that a lot, but the Greys are using advanced technology as a kind of trading trinket, like buying Manhattan. They're saying, okay, you know, all we want to do is give you Agenda 21, and in return we'll give you a gravity drive, or we'll give you a desalination plant, or something like that. And other civilizations bought on this, and so once the Greys get in control, then, you know, the fascism begins. The Verdants are completely different. Their technique for communicating with us was to get ambassadors, as they call them, from all of the advanced and primitive civilizations, bring them on board and say, okay, we're going to start having some meetings, and we're going to hammer out some agreements, and, you know, we're going to get a unified sort of voice from the planet with respect to talking to other civilizations. They were also talking about sharing their technology freely, about the weaponized stuff, and their first show of benign technology was going to be, overnight, they were going to put a 600 square mile grassland in the Mojave Desert. One day it's desert, the next day it's grassland. Okay, that'll impress me. And the second day, they're going to put a visitor center there. It's going to have a library with, you know, their information plus past information on our civilization, and they're going to put out a call to, you know, have all of the advanced civilizations and primitive ones identify ambassadors. They're going to come, they're going to represent the interests of their people, and there's going to be an organized, you know, communication. Now, this is in stark contrast to the Greys and to some of the reptilians and some of these, you know, clearly nefarious groups. You cannot be too nefarious, but there is some negative behavior that seems to be tolerated in the galaxy.
Bob, is there a good video of your talk on this?
Yeah, I'll give you one. I think I got one with me.
You do. Bless your heart.
Oh, you're a glutton for punishment. I tell you, you just never get it. Go fire away. Something interesting.
Yeah, in relation to this question, is that a CD that you can hand out or what?
Yeah. I'll give you. You give me your address and stuff, and I'll mail it to you.
Okay, I got one more question in relationship to what I was asking previously, and that's about the shell of the spacecraft. Now, there's different civilizations out there, but in my readings was that at least 2 of the civilizations, they would go out in space and they would project from their mind the space shell of the craft, and it would bring about a coagulation of the material of what the universe is made out of and produce the shell of the ship. And afterwards, it would take one civilization, it was different from the other. One took 2 weeks, another was a much shorter period of time. But then they would go in there afterwards and put in all the equipment. But I was wondering, they also said that this type of craft can get them from one side of the universe to the other instantly. And I was wondering, has there been any study on what they could possibly determine on what the shell material may be made out of, besides this bezel?
Yeah, so the best source for that is IARGA, I-A-R-G-A. So you just Google in IARGA, and you get a book by this architect from the 1960s. This is part of my other video, or one of my other videos. And this architect is out in a boat in one of the fjords, and he kind of sees somebody in distress in the water, and it's a lot of stuff going on, but he knows, oh, dude, guy's in distress. So he gets in a dinghy, he goes over and he grabs the guy and gets him out, and he realizes, holy smokes, this guy's an alien with a spacesuit on, you know. And the aliens come over and they say, you know, thanks for rescuing this guy, and would you like a tour of our spaceship? And so he gets some insights into their craft, and their exterior is in fact single crystal, and it is molecularly perfect. Now, this is the IARGANs are not highly advanced. They're a few hundred years ahead of us, something like that. But spiritually, service to others, they're a bunch of sweethearts of a guy. And they do describe how they're, well, the inner workings. So, okay, that's one source. The Verdants, which is my favorite example of a highly advanced civilization, they manufacture their craft in a craft factory, you know, on their planet and some other planets. And the craft that they came here with is about 200,000 years old. And in order to get the minerals, they went and mined asteroids. And so they do a conventional construction, but again, it's something that's, you know, a mile and a half across, you know, 30,000 Verdants on board. And it isn't just living quarters like a submarine where everybody's compartmentalized. It's got grasslands, and it's, you know, I mean, it's got its own factories. I mean, when you're, you know, 14 million light years from home, you don't call home and say, we broke down, can you send some parts? I mean, this thing has its own factories and its own, and they manufacture environments for people that they're going to bring over and talk to make them comfortable. When Philip Kraft was there, you know, he slept in a hotel room. You know, they just, you know, had a bathroom and a sink and the whole ball game. And so when you talk about being able to travel using your mental energy, that's clearly an interdimensional effect. That's not space-time. That's not where you take your bag of bones, you sit in the spaceship, and off you go. But it's clear that we are dumbed down, that the bankers and the other forces have really conspired to keep us ignorant and to keep us unaware of our own capabilities. And Project Camelot's got that in spades, and they describe, you know, and that's why Scientology was so heavily suppressed, was they were empowering people. And when the Verdants want to go locally, they travel in space-time, but when they want to go across the universe, they use wormholes. And there was a civilization that came through, according to Alex Collier, you know, billions of years ago. I mean, the universe is 14 billion. A couple of billion, who knows? And it was a 12th density civilization, and they built a bunch of wormholes for use by our civilizations.
Lyrans?
Go ahead.
What were they, Lyrans or Lyrans?
No, you could have been. But he said they, you know, nowadays, when one of these wormholes breaks, nobody knows how to fix it. You know, it's just like they came through and made all these and then left, and, you know. So there's the story of alien civilization is a lot bigger than what we currently know. Bigger than just space-time, that's for sure. Yes, sir. Oh, fire away. It's you lucky duck.
The last thing you just mentioned was like in the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster goes out there and she's told that, well, we don't even know who created those wormholes. So they were alluding to
mimicking, yeah. That Contact was clearly Carl Sagan. So his secretary was on Coast 6 or 8 years ago. That was Carl Sagan's secretary. And she's she would open his mail for him. And so in comes the mail, and she'd open it all up and kind of, you know, stack it up so he, you know, just save him a little time. And she kind of sees this one letter that's kind of out of place. She goes, oh, you know, she cracks it open, and then she kind of realizes, wait a minute, this is kind of an old letter, you know. And then she looks at the date, and she goes, oh, this thing is, you know, several years old, you know. So it was clearly he was storing it, and she kind of scans it to see what it says, and it's a document from, I believe it was Princeton University, that said we're alerting you through this communication that we have received intelligent electromagnetic signals from Venus. Okay, that's about all it said. And it was kind of like this placeholder to say, you know, we were there first. But it was also to say, we know that if we tell anybody, we'll get into trouble, so we're just telling you, that's all. And so Sagan was clearly in both worlds. He was in the Black Ops, and he was, you know, he was coming up with, you know, swamp gas explanations, which was clearly cover story. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, he had his own experiences, which he, you know, never told people about. And that is common. If you become successful, like Philip, the crop circle guy, Colin Andrews, they come and recruit you. They dangle a lot of money, and who wouldn't be tempted?
So what I actually wanted to ask you about was, could you elaborate more on the artificial intelligence and scanning the etheric realm?
Boy, yeah. So this, the AI computer, yeah.
In particular, we know that all of our email and everything else we do on the net is already being scanned through computers that have been chopping it up.
Up in Utah, yeah.
Right. And we also know the military has been big into remote viewing and have remote viewers out there doing their thing.
Right, and remote influencers.
So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, how does the AI, if it's scanning the etheric realm, getting printouts? Is it using some sort of conversion software to then...
Okay, so you cannot think of the bankers, the controlling elite, the military intelligence. You cannot think of them as one organism that is controlling things. It is warring factions. They're jealous of each other. They're infighting. These are service to self people, okay? They're not going to get along. You have a meeting of these bankers, and one banker leaves, and pretty quick these guys are talking about how they're going to bump him off or cut him off at the knees, okay? And so, the NSA's technology, where they're scanning the emails and they're putting all this stuff in, there was a whistleblower on Coast, you know, only 6 months ago. That was a whistleblower from the NSA. It was an episode with the Vegas guy, not Kraft.
Lear?
No, the moderator. But anyway,
George.
but instead of Nori, it was the Sunday guy.
George Knapp.
George Knapp.
Now,
Right.
that's what I was
Okay.
trying to
So
say, yeah.
it was his interview with this NSA whistleblower. Okay, and what the whistleblower was talking about, these databases with emails, with phone calls, and you make a phone call and they get voice recognition. It gets turned into characters, and that's in a searchable database. Okay, he says that they're not using that. It's mostly, you know, raw data that's just laying around in these huge databases. And what they really want to do is If you are starting to be a troublemaker, they're going to go start looking in the database. They're going to single you out. They're going to find out what the deal is. Okay, but that is very conventional, and that's just straightforward Nazi Germany sort of stuff. Okay, now you start going into remote viewing and remote influencing. Different group. Okay, different motivation. And if you look up Byron Belitzos on the internet, he was part of the 9/11 group, and they were all targeted by the remote influencers. And they all were tired all the time, and it was because they wanted to squash the 9/11 movement. And so, long story short, these are all warring factions. Now, whoever's doing the AI, we only have the one source for this, and that's this guy, Jake Simpson, and that's a phony name. He's probably M6. He's probably from England, and his background is M6. But they keep tabs on him like crazy through this system, and it isn't just that they're listening, they remote influence you as well, and give you diseases and stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's the system, a very sophisticated system, that even the aliens don't like us having it. But we only have this one guy who talks about it. So you go to Project Camelot, and you look up Jake Simpson, it's either Camelot or Avalon, and you can download a PDF, and kind of what I like to do is play the PDF on my computer and beam it into Audacity, which is a free program, and then the Audacity will export to an MPEG. And then you have it on your iPod, and so you can listen while you commute, and that's my favorite way to do that sort of stuff. It's the Jake Simpson one is really long, but the one on the Scientology one is pretty long. It's a couple of hours, but this one's only 19 minutes. So that's a sum total. I haven't seen that AI computer anywhere else. And the one that they're building down in Utah, that's all NSA and conventional, just scanned emails. The Russians have a system that kind of like that.
Did you have a presentation that you had made that wraps this last section up that you just mentioned about all the different factors?
No, this is really pretty new. I knew that Camelot fell apart, and I didn't know the inside story until I found a video where the two of them were being interviewed, and they described what the sense of, because I knew that there was more of a story here. But they only discovered what really went on years later. So they broke up in 2009, and now it's 12. It's only about 3 years. And so I think it's only been in the last 6 months they've come forward with this. Okay. And what's good about that that whole genre of information is they alert you to the groups that are the most how can I say this, the most highest technology. The whistleblowers that they've done interviews with that have the most punch, like Pete Peterson and like Henry Deacon, and some of them are fairly insignificant. They've got all these interviews that are long and go on forever, that there's not much to them, but there's a few that are very important. So that's what you get out of that. And I kind of left it off the record just because it got them into so much trouble.
Yeah.
I just assumed stay below the radar, and
you care to survive? You care to
I'm building a survival house, so that's my strategy.
Are you building a talk on this?
Go ahead.
Are you building a talk on
Yeah, well, but that's kind of what I was telling George about. Was my next talk that I'm going to build from scratch will be called Passive Activism, and it will be a kind of an overview of this power structure and the technologies they have and how they can influence you and the ways to coexist. And really, there are fairly simple changes in our civilization where you're effectively removing power from them. And George kind of hit it right on the head that you want to disinvest in the dollar. You want to disinvest in the money system. And you want to invest in alternatives and things that make you independent. And we've got a reasonably good way to do that. Yeah. So that's
off-grid.
Probably May or something. Yeah, it's off-grid. It's all DC and it's electromagnetically silent, which is a big deal for people that have smart. One of the things I'm an activist on is smart meters. That the video that I did here for George, 300,000 views on YouTube, and I get emails from all over the country on new groups. And that's a popular video to put on their homepage when smart meters come to town and the activists go, we've got to get them out. And that video it's a good overview of why you should be concerned. And it's non-threatening, and it's one of the earlier things I did. But being an activist in that, that's also part of the mind control and the grid network and higher technology. And it's, you know, they've been doing this for thousands of years, at least 1,000 years, and they know how to control civilizations. The bankers do.
You mentioned this name Byron.
Belitzos.
Belitzos?
Belitsos, I think like that. But he runs Origin Press. So if you type in Origin Press, and then you'd have to probably get an email off to me, and it'll take me a little bit of hunting. But when the 9/11 groups started smelling a rat and going, oh, it looks like they demolished the building, so this is the government, you know, trying to pass the Patriot Act, and all I have to do is bump off, you know, 3,000 Americans and blame it on somebody, and they go, hey, we need the Patriot Act, we need Homeland Security, we need to stick our hands down your pants in the airport. And people are still lining up in the airports. Yeah. So, okay, they really got their way. With 9/11, they can't allow us to know the truth. Okay? So when activists started, you know, raising a fuss, they wanted to neutralize the activists. So that was Catherine Austin Fitts, that was Byron, who was active in that movement. It was Griffin, the guy who's the theologist who got wind of this. Hofstadter, you know, Hofschnitt, that guy. Okay, so Eric Hofschnitt. So they all got what can best be described as a voodoo curse. And the way this works is, and Catherine Austin Fitts was the first one to discover this. You know, she was tired all the time, and she went to this energy healer, and the energy healer says, hey, you've got a curse, you know, you're going to have to go to this witch doctor. And it was like a ball of energy that's sitting in their third chakra, and it was just psychotherapeutic energy out of them. Okay? And this meant they were tired all the time, they get colds. Jim Mars was also on the hit list, okay? So, now, Catherine Austin Fitts was a real firebrand. You know, she was working for the Housing and Urban Development and got a kind of fed up. You know, she said that place was being run by a criminal enterprise. You know, and she quits, and she's a whistleblower, and next thing you know, they're suing her, and it was, you know, this long tirade, and so she was a real in-your-face sort of an activist. Okay, I think she was a Wharton grad. You know, so I really understand that. But when the witch doctor took the curse away, he told her, now, you understand you're a sitting duck for another curse. She goes, why? And he says, you're in anger all the time. When you're in anger, you've let your fields down. Okay? The witch doctors can get you a piece of cake. He says, if you're in integrity, that doesn't work. The other guy that amplifies this is the guy from MI6 who was in the trip chair, Casbolt.
Yeah.
Okay? He was on Coast a while ago, and I don't know how he got through the woodwork, and I haven't heard from him since. But it was a 3-hour interview. It wasn't interrupted. And he talked about the trip chair and time travel.
I think he was a presenter at the recent UFO.
So he's still, really? Casbolt?
September, yeah. I think he was.
At the, UFO Con? Not Conspiracy Con, right? Not Conspiracy Con, but UFO Con.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what he said was...
Brian's his first annual UFO.
He was in the trip chair, and he would be told to kill people. And he said, in the trip chair, you get the picture, and you psychically find out where they were, and then you tell the satellites to kill the guy, give him a heart attack or something like this. And he says, if you were trying to kill somebody that was pure of heart, that was in integrity, he said, it didn't work. You know, people were angry, you could just bump them off like crazy. Same thing. Now when you hear Catherine Austin Fitts talk in interviews and stuff like this, she doesn't say, I need to murder the bankers, what a bunch of assholes, we gotta kill everyone. No, that's not what she says. She says, we need to change the way money works. You know, we have to form solaric communities. We have to have safe havens, okay? And so she is walking the walk, and you see that with Jim Mars, and you see it with David Icke, that he is no longer, presenting an angry solution. He's presenting a solution that's in integrity.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a message for our planet. And that's what Gandhi said to do. Gandhi was successful. That's what Martin Luther King said. he was so successful that the Black Ops had to bump him off.
That lesson has a lot to do with your own revelations about an insurance policy for yourself too. Of course.
No, I'm building in Nevada County that was one of the first counties to adopt the Thrive model for self-governance. Their first meetings, they had 400 people there. That place is unbelievably progressive. They've got energy healers there, and let me give you a preview.
Nevada County, where?
That's where Nevada City is in Grass Valley. It's on the way to Reno. To give you
against Prop 37.
I'll give you a little preview of this. Okay, if you are in the healthcare system and you get cancer, you're going to die. You're going to be drained of money. You're going to be poisoned, and you will eventually die. Okay. Now, if instead of doing that, you go to an herbalist, you go to an energy healer, suddenly your chances of survival are significantly better. If they've got rife machines, it goes up even more. If they have human growth hormone, it goes up even more. Those are all suppressed by the FDA. The FDA doesn't have local jurisdiction. They only have jurisdiction because they come and they boss people around and the sheriff agrees. If that's a constitutional sheriff, they tell the FDA to go home and have a beer. That the jurisdiction, the constitutional jurisdiction over those things is given to the states. It is given to the people. It is not given to the central government. The government can have foreign, they manage wars, they manage treaties, and they manage interstate commerce. Interstate commerce. Okay, so suddenly you can have a city where all of those alternative technologies are available, and people would flock there. Okay, and it isn't just cancer; it's all the degenerative diseases. Okay, and the system is outlawing good health. They're saying you have to eat GMO foods, and you get a vaccination. And let me tell you that the new weaponized vaccines that they have, they form it's like a growing object in your body, and that's what they use to control you.
Like more gallons?
It's an injectable, but it's a microorganism that when they inject it, it forms a matrix in your body. It ties into your nervous system. It's like, I plan to get no vaccinations, partly because they're poison, partly because they don't work, and partly because I don't want to become a robot. Now, if you have a rife machine, suddenly all that changes. You can kill that organism with the right frequencies. Fire away.
Yes, I have a video by Clint Richardson.
Clint Richardson, don't know.
Called Lethal Injection. What?
Oh yeah, there's
I have some copies here if you're interested. It's a real eye-opener.
The place to go is Sherry Tenpenny. I guess you're familiar with her. She's a physician, okay, and she's done over 10,000 hours of research into vaccines. Okay, so in school you're taught vaccinations, and she gets out and she's kind of going, well, really, what's the science behind this? And the bottom line is there has never been a double-blind placebo-controlled study that shows efficacy. What do they show? They say if we inject it into you, you later on show antibodies. We're good. It's going to work. People with high antibodies to tetanus still get tetanus. There is a problem with the entire metaphor. But all the doctors are taught the same thing. You saw that the slide I put up. They said the bankers are controlling medical school. They're controlling the legal community is never taught to do local municipality lawsuits on constitutional grounds. They're taught, that you can only do that in federal court. There's a Supreme Court decision that says you can do that. And so all of the middle class is being bamboozled like that. The doctor, it's not the doctor's fault. He has worked his ass off to get that degree, but he was lied to. It's the same with Mark Starr, who does thyroid. What he learned about thyroid in medical school was trivial. And when he went back into the literature, he found that it was a completely different story. And so, at any rate, that's once we go through the chains, this will all
There's no documentary like this one that I have by Clint Richardson called Lethal Injection. None.
So you like that one the best?
You can watch it on YouTube.
It's really comprehensive.
Oh yeah, I've got I think 4. The one that I like is to shoot 'em up, and there's
a bunch of them.
yeah, there's a bunch, but a couple of them they're very good about documentation all the way through and saying what they're currently doing.
Well, I gave you a copy of it.
Yeah, I haven't looked at. Well, I'm building a house. Believe me, the engineer is slowing down the damn house and pouring the foundation next week. Fire away, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to...
Oh, fire away, go ahead. No, we love you the best. We love him too. We're a big happy family. We're competing for love.
But quietly, you didn't get to ask anything. You know, when you were talking about the voodoo energy going to people who are angry or
let their shields down,
subject to all that, trying to make changes in the world, positive changes. Is it possible that some people who have like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or something like that could have been targeted by something?
Well, I'm in the loop. Oh, when I became notorious for smart meters, I got my notice in 2008 and said, you're going to get a smart meter. And I called PG&E and I said, don't want one. And they said, you don't have a choice. And I said, hell I do. I did the video with you. 300,000 of those people have watched that. And we now have opt-out in California. In Southern California, they were being forced down their throats. I helped them out with a lawsuit down there. They now have opt-out. Hawaii, opt-in only. So yes, being in integrity makes a difference, and being an activist can make a difference. And when I first started getting into that, I went into spirit and I said, this could get me in a lot of trouble. This could get me killed. This could get my kids killed. What should I do? And Spirit said, you're safe. This is an okay thing to do. And so it's kind of like, you know, if you're going to stay in integrity, you're never going to get into a fight blindly. That in integrity, your spirit guides will say, you know, this could be trouble. It's good for our planet, but you have to understand you could die. You have to understand that there could be collateral. You know, the people in Tiananmen Square, they didn't ask that. They knew there was a higher good, and they were willing to sacrifice their lives. You have to hand it to those people. So anyway, being in integrity works.
And that's really it. I mean,
except for me.
To ask yourself, you know, to live each day doing something important that you think is important. You know, because days are precious, and they might as well be spent doing the important things, even when they're hard.
You know, so you know Pat Flanagan, right? The reincarnation of Tesla.
That's what he says.
Yeah. Well,
you
and
think he is? I mean,
when I hear him talk about electromagnetism, he really knows it. So he's a kid.